We're very fortunate to have Steve Robinson here with us, who is with the White House Office of Domestic Policy Counsel. Steve is a former chemistry and biology teacher from Oregon. He came to Washington a few years ago as an Einstein Fellow to work as an intern. His internship was with a new senator named Barack Obama, and now he's been helping the administration to lead the charge on STEM education. So I kind of grabbed Steve and asked him if he would make a couple of impromptu remarks on, you know, what the administration's priorities are and where we think we're headed here. Thank you, Steve.
Good morning. So I was saying that Secretary Riley's shoes are big shoes to fill, but when I worked for then Senator Obama, people would come to visit him and I would show up, so I'm kind of used to this. I've talked to Tom since the inception of these learning studios. I find this a really interesting idea. And part of this is part of my history that Tom doesn't know or didn't talk about, which is my first career was actually as a research scientist. I have a PhD in molecular biology. And for a number of reasons, I decided to stop doing that university work, wanted to go back into teaching. And the first thing I tried to do was volunteer in my kids' schools in Eugene, Oregon. In biology. I thought I could be helpful in a biology class. And it was as though I was an extreme antigen coming into the immune system of the school. They couldn't figure out what to do with me or why. And I didn't really understand that until I decided that I'd become a teacher, and then parents would try to volunteer and I would say, please, I don't want you here. Because there's this really, it's a difficult transition. You know, scientists think that they can be really helpful in schools until they see my 9th grade class and they realize this is a totally different universe and we really have to figure out how to get these two to work together. So just knowing science isn't enough, and for a lot of teachers, not knowing enough science is a challenge. So this could be incredibly powerful, and apparently is incredibly powerful. So I'm really interested in learning more about this. But I'm really here today to talk a little bit about working for President Obama and his interest in STEM, which is something that he's expressed since the very beginning. The first day that I started working in his office as a fellow, he hadn't interviewed me when I came in. And he walks into the office and he says, hey, who are you? And I said, well, I'm your new fellow, I'm a teacher from Oregon. He says, come on in the office, let's talk. So we talked for about 45 minutes about teaching. And he has an incredibly deep understanding of teaching. You know, his sister was a teacher. He often talks about the importance of education in his life and the First Lady's life. And he talks a lot about STEM education. And the reason he does this is, I mean, there's many reasons why he does this, but one of them that is persistent and incredibly important now is his understanding that science and technology, engineering, math, STEM is incredibly important for America's future. That America's future is really going to depend upon the scientists and engineers and the technologists who drive innovation in our country. And that this is going to be a continuing challenge and a continuing issue that we need to address. When President Obama first became president in 2009, one of the first talks he gave was at the National Academy of Sciences about the importance of science, the necessity of science, I think was the title of the address. And what he said that day, there was a line that I like to use. He said it was really important to encourage young people to create and build and invent, to be makers of things, not just consumers of things. And I think that's really what we have to think about in STEM education. That's really the goal. We don't want everyone to become a scientist or an engineer, but we do want everyone to become scientifically literate, to understand how the world works, and to become mathematically competent. Those are incredible skills that everyone needs. The president talks about the economy being built upon the skills of America's people. And we have to think that those, you know, we realize that those skills are skills that are often related to the STEM disciplines. We know that people who have STEM degrees, even if they don't work in STEM fields, are more likely to be employed, are more likely to earn more. And we also know that in terms of equal opportunity, STEM degrees, STEM knowledge is a huge bonus. That there's a huge disparity, a bonus for having STEM skills. And that bonus is even greater if you're a female and you work in a STEM field, or if you're a minority and you work in a STEM field. This is actually an avenue to opportunity. So one of the issues that the president talks about a lot in terms of STEM is the issue of equity and opportunity, that we have to realize that we need to encourage STEM skills and great STEM teaching for all students. This is something that's incredibly important, both as an equity issue, but as an issue of opportunity and innovation for our country. Right? One of the reasons why this is incredibly important is that innovation now is global. Tech jobs are following that. We need to think about the diversity of our country as an asset in terms of innovation and in terms of discovery. So we need more Americans who are involved in STEM learning at a deep level. We need to make sure that we have great science and math teachers for all students, not just students in the leafy green suburbs. We have to think about how we make sure that students in rural schools and students in urban schools, who often we know don't have teachers who are as deeply immersed in STEM fields, that they have the opportunities to do that. And if we have teachers who need to have increased understanding of these areas, that things like these design studios might be a great idea. So the president has, from the beginning of the first term, talked about the importance of STEM and the importance of partnerships in STEM. When he talked about this at the National Academy of Sciences in 2009, he called for an all-hands-on-deck approach, that we really needed to think about partnerships, about how we could involve everyone. And there have been some initiatives that I can just briefly mention. One called Educate to Innovate, which was launched in 2009, 2010, bringing together a number of industry, business people, foundation people at the White House to talk about how we could move forward together and what some of the roles were. And there's an organization that was set up from that called Change the Equation that's working with a number of CEOs across the country to think about how to become more deeply involved in STEM education. What are some of the specific ways that philanthropies and businesses could be involved in STEM? The president has often talked about the need for great STEM teaching. And I just want to mention two initiatives there. One is one of the things that he has talked about a lot is 100,000 great new STEM teachers in the decade. How do we think about how to better prepare teachers in these fields so that when they go into the classroom, they have both the pedagogical content knowledge and the scientific expertise or mathematical expertise needed to be great in this? And recently, in July, he proposed an idea about a STEM Master Teacher Corps, which is the idea that we have many terrific teachers in these fields across the country who often go unrecognized, unrewarded. One of the things that the president often talks about is the idea of teaching as a career with an arc, which should have different steps, different opportunities for teachers as they move through the field. So that when you're looking at teaching as a career, you might not think that my choices are to be a teacher for X number of years and then move out of teaching into the administration or move to the White House, but move into something else. But there might be different steps. There might be different steps along a pathway. And one of these is the issue of how do we retain teachers by saying, if you're a great teacher and if you're willing to take on extra roles and responsibilities, there might be a role for you as a master teacher. So we've decided the president has decided that he really would like to advance this idea of having a core of master teachers in these fields. So this is a proposal that he announced in this past July, and that we're working on trying to advance with some congressional support and a lot of interest about developing a proposal around how to identify great teachers in these fields. And we have lots of recognition programs. We have the presidential awards for excellence in math and science teaching, but oftentimes those are just recognition. We identify a teacher, we say you're a great teacher, we bring them to the White House, and then they go home, and we don't actually tap their expertise. So the idea is really, how do we think about not just identifying great teachers and recognizing them and giving them some rewards, but actually using their expertise. And again, this is an area that I think it would be great to have discussions about how partnerships can help this. If someone is a master teacher, if they have that extra recognition and reward, what are the other things that they might do? And I just want to finish that by, when we announced this, we identified a number of teachers we asked many partners to identify teachers from across the country who might kind of fit this category. And they came to the White House and they sat down, they had a discussion with Cecilia Munoz, the domestic policy advisor, with Secretary Duncan, with John Holdren, the science advisor to the president. And what was really interesting was many of these were teachers who had been recognized through one sort of a program or another, but then they had gone back to their school districts and said, hey, I'm actually pretty good at this, and somebody has recognized me. Maybe I could do more. And what these teachers had taken on of their own volition as kind of extra tasks, not because they had been forced to, not even because they had been asked to, but because all of a sudden the humility of being a teacher in a classroom all by yourself was broken through. You were recognized as being good. There was something more that they would take on as a leadership responsibility or a leadership role, and it was incredibly inspiring. I think it was very inspiring for Secretary Duncan and Director Munoz and John Holdren to hear these stories of teachers who, although they already were working really hard, although they were already really excellent teachers, decided that they had an extra role that they could play within their school, within their community, by bringing people together. So I'm really interested in learning more about these studios today, and I thank you for all of your hard work, and realize that this is something that Tom said that we have to make sure that teachers, that we have teachers' backs. One of the things that I can say with some confidence is that the president also has the back of public school teachers, and specifically in this area, which he's really interested. So thank you very much.